Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast again. I am excited to have my friend and colleague Heather McGibbon on tonight for our Halloween version of the podcast. Let me start by telling you a little bit about Heather. So, Heather is a licensed clinical social worker trained in psychodynamic therapy who integrates tools from CBT, DBT, ACT, and other modalities to treat clients in emotional distress. McGibbon believes in the importance of understanding clients' multiple intersectional identities and how they affect their mental health care. Heather graduated from Fordham in 2018 and continued her training as a postgraduate fellow at Fordham's College Psychological Services. She did her clinical hours post-Fordham at Brooklyn Psychotherapy, working with various client populations, including but not limited to the LGBTQIAA+ community. Heather specializes in working with artists, which led her to her receiving a PhD in cinema studies and a certificate in culture, media, and history from NYU. She has a very long academic and clinical pedigree, but that's not why we're having you here tonight, Heather. We're having you here tonight for our Halloween episode because you have a quirky interest in the horror genre. And in fact, you have a subspecialty emphasis in serial killers. So let's talk about your interest in horror and serial killers.
Well, I was thinking about that. I'm like, I've always been fascinated. I mean, long before I ever studied psychology in horror, and kind of my fascination in serial killers also predates my interest in psychology. Like, ever since I was a kid, I was a big fan of like monster movies, horror movies, slasher genre films. And I started to get really like fascinated by different kinds of documentaries about serial killers because of the way the serial killers were presented. And I found that really fascinating, but it's kind of like chilling and disturbing, but also like fits into a kind of container in a way. And so it's a way to kind of explore the kind of like creepy horror, scary, unempathetic mind in a very contained way, in a very contained manner. So I think that's kind of where I ended up with this like weird subgenre that I'm interested in.
Okay, favorite slasher film growing up?
Halloween.
Halloween.
Yep.
The original,
The
not the
original
other ones.
Halloween. Nope. The original Halloween. Total favorite.
hmm hmm
Jamie Lee Curtis all the way.
And Halloween versus Friday the 13th, any contest?
Uh, no, Halloween definitely
Mm.
was my favorite.
So, what was it that you liked about Halloween so much?
I think there was something about the sort of figure of Michael Myers and the
Mm.
just like flat, like you could just project any kind of like horror manifestation onto this, guy with the mask and the, you know, work suit or whatever.
Mm.
And the idea that it started with a like unempathetic, disturbed child, like a child that could do harm to a family member and kill a family member in that way, was
Mm.
something that I was like really fascinated with.
Mm.
And I think probably it's because I remember very distinctly the moment when I was very early childhood when I realized that if I hit my brother, it hurt him, but it didn't hurt me.
Mm.
And I had that horrific thought of like, oh my God, I could hurt someone and not actually realize it.
Mm.
And, sort of like having that kind of moment of horror of like, oh, I have to be careful not to hurt someone else because I won't immediately know. There was this realization that there could be a possibility that one might intentionally do that. And
Mm.
that was like more than my little brain could handle. Um, but something like Halloween is based on the premise that barrier is gone, right?
Heather, you were talking about your brother and how that connected to Michael Myers.
I'm sure he'd be so pleased to hear that. Um, well, I think my sort of fascination with Michael Myers had to do with, like I said, an early childhood memory of what I think of as me as a child developing empathy, but like punching my brother and realizing that it hurt him, but I didn't actually feel it. And that if I didn't, like, it was an emotional response, not a physical response. So I didn't feel the pain that he was feeling. And being kind of shocked by that on the one hand, and also like disturbed because I realized that if I wasn't shocked by it, there wouldn't be anything that would keep me from like punching him again,
Hmm.
which is kind of a very disturbing thing for a little child to learn. But I think one of the ways that we learn empathy, right?
Hmm.
At least I hope, unless I'm a sociopath, which is, possible, I suppose. Um, but I became really fascinated with Halloween because it starts out with this image of this unempathetic child who goes in and kills his sister. And I mean, there's all kinds of things surrounding that, but I think that that piece of horror, that like horror of like crossing that boundary and murdering family, is like so intense um, that it just really drew me in. And then I started becoming fascinated with the ways that serial killers were presented in like fiction media and also in documentary and interviews and things like that. So,
So you're describing something interesting to me in that you're describing sort of an inside out experience of
mhm.
your horror internally. And I'm thinking about actually the reverse is true for Michael Myers. What makes that so
Right.
powerful is you cannot
You
see
don't feel it. Yeah.
the
You
affect,
don't see.
but there's this rage that's expressed in violence and murder.
Right.
Is so what about that disconnect gets you excited?
Um, I think it's because there's this sort of moment of like all you can project all of the horrible things you could think of into that moment. And yet, it's like a blank screen. It's like you can project anything you want into the face of Michael Myers.
Hmm.
And, you know, I mean, I can talk a little bit about how genre works as a container, but one of the things about horror as a genre is that in that projection, we like take the horror out of ourselves and can like, in some theoretical constructions, release it or have
Hmm.
like a catharsis. And I find that really interesting and like kind of a fascinating thing about Michael Myers in particular
Hmm.
because of the blank screen mask
Hmm.
um, that just fascinates me. Um, so yeah, I think that's why it's like my favorite horror film. That and the music's amazing. So, yep, gotta
Very,
go with it.
very minimalist.
Very minimalist, very simple, but super creepy.
So, I want to hear about the genre as a container in a sec, but I want to tell you about my experience of Halloween because it's a different sort of horror,
Oh,
and I think it's because Halloween. What year was Halloween?
oh God, what year was it? It's like I can look it up really quickly. Halloween original. Ah, it was 78.
78. Okay, so I
Yep.
was I was 9 years old. I was
Right.
just heading into or towards adolescence.
Early adolescence and the
Early
like
adolescence.
sexualized part of it. Right.
Right. And watching it again a little
Hmm.
bit later as an adolescent growing up in the HIV AIDS
Right.
epidemic, what I found scary was that if you had sex with someone, you were going to die.
Yeah.
Right, that that
Yeah.
that was the horror that I kind of learned from that, which was that you have all these people skinny dipping or they're like
Right. Or they're
getting
like,
sexual, and then
yeah.
bam,
And
they
then
get killed.
bam, they get killed. Exactly. No, absolutely. And that is definitely one of the interpretations. It's like you break any kind of social rule and you're going to die, right?
Yep, yep, yep. It was
And the
really
only,
weird having sex and not dying after that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, anybody who got through the late 80s, like, has that like horror of living through the news and watching people die and like having that experience in the queer community.
right,
And, you know, yeah, it does fit that kind of horror
right. And with
like
that, we have the
structure.
two drives, right? We've got
Right.
the aggression and the libido,
And a little bit,
and
oh yeah,
and they both ended
they
death.
go both end in death. Yep.
So when did you realize that you were like really interested in slasher films and serial killers and things like that?
I just kept finding I was watching more and more. I mean, I always like all the way through college watched a lot of like crime drama, and I started watching more. I was studying for the, media culture and history
Hmm.
certificate when I was in my PhD program, and I was finding myself on my free time still watching film or still watching television, but I was watching documentaries, which is partly what my certificate was in. But it was the fun ones were the like serial killers, honestly.
Why were they fun?
Um, Partly because, and we'll talk a little bit about Snapped, but partly because the genre of the sort of like serial killer interview or the serial killer docudrama is so formulaic
Mm,
that there's it almost, I mean, especially with Snapped in particular, it almost becomes humorous
hmm hmm
and it breaks that horror in a way, in a very interesting way that like makes it possible to kind of imagine these like real lived horror scenarios in a very like contained way,
mm.
in a way that allows it to be sort of metabolized and like taken in and like not necessarily understood, but like thought about a little bit more easily.
So maybe now is a good time to talk about your idea of genre as a container. What does that mean?
Well, genre is a structure. I mean,
Mhm.
if you think about what genre is a way of organizing narrative principles, right? So that we can understand a story. And, people have talked about genre in a lot of different ways. Um, they've talked about it as, especially the horror genre, as a way of dealing with, um, how do you say it? Like coping with and metabolizing like ultimate fears of like grief, loss, death, murder, sex, the sort of monstrous other. These things are all sort of presented in the horror genre and then like recontained
Mm,
by the structure of the genre. Like the monster gets killed in the end most of the time,
mm,
except when they're an ongoing slasher film and then they just keep going and going and going. But, and when I think about documentaries have a very specific structure,
mhm,
and they're usually set up in a way to either inform or to present an argument of some sort or to elicit a particular type of feeling. And documentaries about serial killers, and particularly Snapped, try to like skate this edge between like information and eliciting feeling
mm.
and eliciting horror. And I find that really interesting and really interesting in terms of documentary, which is supposed to be factual information, but it's presented in this way that almost, literally makes it entertainment.
Mm. So I'm thinking about the idea of a container, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking about the idea of when does a container um, l- almost like I'm wondering if there's like I'm trying to think of a chart where as one factor goes up, another factor goes down,
Uh-huh.
because there seems to be this moment where containers become formulaic. Like you sort of
Right.
described in the horror movie, the monster's always defeated at the end, or is
Or are
he?
they?
Or are they? And then, like, now you sort of get this new, almost formulaic thing, which is, maybe it wasn't this way after Halloween or some of the earlier horror
Mhm.
movies, but then, it almost becomes this formulaic trope that, like, we're like, okay, let's wait for the dun dun,
Ta-ta. Like when the
sec
monster comes back,
comes
right?
back, right? And
Yeah.
and so I'm wondering about, when does a container cross over into being too formulaic, or does that always get put into a larger container?
Well, and I go back to Snapped as my example. Snapped is fascinating because the container is so obvious. I mean, especially, I mean, if you think about documentary, one of the things you think about is narration, right?
Hmm hmm
And Snapped is actually famous for its narration. Just want to pull up her name so I don't get it wrong. There are two narrators that did basically from like, 2005 through, I think it was like season 24. So,
Wait, there are 24 seasons of this?
oh, there's more than 24 seasons of this.
Okay,
This is still going on.
let's back up. I keep backing you up. I'm
Okay,
sorry, but
that's okay.
what is Snapped? Some of us don't know what Snapped is.
Let me tell you a little bit about Snapped.
Okay.
Snapped is a show from the Oxygen Network that started in, I think it was August of 2004, and mainly focused on telling the stories of women who kill. And it's very much along, it's sort of tried to like skate the line between like journalism and documentary and this kind of like thrill of being close to something horrible.
Mm.
Um, And it's famous for its narration. Like one of the things about the narrators that did season 2 through season 24, Ronnie Frere and Sharon Martin, they actually say like when they left the series, it just has never been the same.
Mm.
Is that they have this narration that's like on the one hand giving the information, and on the other hand extremely judgmental.
Hmm.
Have a very judgy voice, and so
Wait,
it's really
how does
it's
that
really
work?
it's really funny. It's like there are certain, like they introduce the characters and, but there's this leaning into the kind of like, and then, this happened and, and then she like, they thought that she was at the park, but really she was over here. And like everything is like overly emphasized. And so it starts to become really, I mean, on the one hand, it's like right on the edge of being a parody of itself.
Mm.
It's not quite a parody of itself. I think it takes itself seriously, but it's so on the edge that it shows all the seams of the container, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
And so, you get the kind of like, oh, this is a constructed narrative about somebody who's experienced this horrible thing or who like went through this like, psychological state where they murdered someone.
Mhm.
And we get one story from the narrator, but there's so much other information that it's like it can't be contained by the, 45 minutes.
So, interestingly, when you mentioned this was a documentary about women who kill, I
Hmm.
I I assumed the victim was a man.
Almost always, yes.
Okay,
Almost
but
always their partner.
almost always their
Not
partner.
always, but almost always.
So take us through an archetypal episode of Snapped.
An archetypal episode of Snapped starts with the um the average American family. And, you have the sort of woman who's, the daughter of the average American family who may be somewhat troubled in high school, but, seems to be getting her life together. And she meets this man usually and becomes partners with him and, maybe marries him, maybe like moves in with him. And then something goes wildly awry.
Like what?
Uh, like maybe there's a money motive, like maybe he's wealthy and like she realizes that, the narration says that she realized possibly that she could become very wealthy, or maybe she starts having an affair with someone else, sometimes a woman, and this complicates the relationship at home, and there's this like there's always these like social complicating factors. Usually the like family is a lower class white family, almost throughout. Not entirely, but almost throughout.
Mm.
And usually the victim is a white heterosexual man.
Mm.
Almost always, not always. I was watching some back episodes, and there's actually some really interesting ones where like, you know, the murder victim actually was like the babysitter that was like
Mm.
giving them trouble with child custody or something like that. And that was a person of color, but mostly we're talking about white violence on white violence in this like very heteronormative structure that
Hmm.
sometimes somehow gets disrupted by money or by drugs or by illicit affairs. And then, that breaks the relationship. And rather than leave the relationship or being able to leave the relationship, the woman decides to kill the partner.
Because why not?
Because why not? And it sort of, it goes into, and it usually is like everything seemed normal until we realized that Judy had bought an extraordinary amount of air conditioner fluid or, something like
What?
that.
Air condition.
I think it's like coolant is actually a poison that,
Okay.
it's apparently like it gets talked about in terms of like having a sweet taste. And so people like will put it in people's drinks and stuff like that to like poison them.
Okay.
Um, Heavy metals are also like a way of doing this, or like trying to stage a like home invasion, and like have it be a home invasion that's gone wrong, and then realize, oh, but the only person who has fingerprints or blood on them is, the innocent woman who happened to be there.
So wait a minute. Are there like is each episode got a brand new way of killing people, or does it get to a point where you're like, oh God, it's coolant again? Or
It's mostly it's actually kind of funny because like they've had to branch out from just women killing their male partners because they've kind of run out. And so so now that's where they get to the like, well, she killed her babysitter for like giving out, bad information to CPS. And um because if you
as
think this has been going on
as
for
if you
like
should be
20
homicidal when
years,
CPS is investigating your family
right?
at all. You'd expect better behavior from
One
people.
would sincerely hope. Um,
So I guess I start to wonder now because you said this has been going on for close to 30 years. Do you think that
wow,
this
it has been
document
close to 30 years.
so do you think this documentary has actually inspired viewers to pick certain ways to kill their partners? Like, do you imagine that like there's a feedback effect that anyone watched this and then went on to, say,
I mean,
hey,
I don't know. I mean, I sort of wonder because I mean, you hear people talk about like watching shows like NCI and like getting ideas about how to like defeat the, criminal investigators. I'm sure that that's something that, has probably happened.
mm,
Um, I mean, I know it's really funny as someone who like watches or has watched a lot of this show just as like entertainment.
mm,
It can be very disturbing for your partner to come home and have you be watching a show about partners killing partners.
has this occurred? Has your partner come home and seen you?
He comes home and is like, "You're watching Snapped again. Did you have a good day? Like,
Did I do
did I do
something
something
wrong?
wrong?"
All
It's kind of
right.
an
So
ongoing joke between us.
and does your partner enjoy Snapped as well?
Yeah, he does. He likes to make fun of it as
Okay.
well. We
So do you
both
guys
enjoy it.
watch it together?
We have watched it together, yes.
All right. So this is a
Yes.
potential couple activity
It
to
is a
watch.
potential couple activity.
All right.
A romantic Halloween together, watching
Uh,
Snapped.
it beats one of those Hallmark movies, I
Right.
suppose. What? Okay, so let's back up again. Heather, what
Mhm.
is so entertaining about watching serial killers kill their partners?
Um, I mean, I think there's something about the like expression of like domestic frustration that is pretty compelling,
Mm,
I mean, and I think that that's something to, it's like this is the like most extreme representation of domestic frustration that you can see is someone killing their partner.
mhm,
And yeah, I find that really interesting.
mm,
I think maybe it's because I mean, when I talk to clients, sometimes, they often talk about domestic frustrations.
mhm.
And, a lot of times you spend a lot more time, as one of my supervisors once told me, you spend a lot more time talking about money and domestic chores than you even talk about sex sometimes,
Mm.
um, with frustrated partners.
That's a disappointment, isn't it?
Kind of sad, yeah, actually. You want to spend more time talking about sex. It's more
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, we were. we were hoping we wouldn't be talking about laundry at this
And
state of our
yet,
careers,
still
but
at this state in our lives, we're still here talking about who's doing the domestic chores and, who has control over the money. And,
mm,
it's like this is like an extreme representation of that societal frustration, and it's a very gendered frustration, which I think
mhm,
I find interesting.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, and I think and again, it brings the like it breaks the container
mm,
because it's on that verge of parody. It's like it's funny, but it's not funny. It's like
mm,
kind of horrifying, but it's like it almost feels sarcastic with the narration.
mm,
And there's a way in which it's like you watch this and you realize, oh wow, like these are people that really went to jail. These are people that really died. These are,
mhm,
real situations. Um, but the only way that people can kind of like get their head around it is through this kind of structure that we have of the
mm.
genre, or through like a, docudrama. It's like we're going to reenact this enough times so we can have some sort of mastery over it, right?
Yep. Yeah, so let's talk about that because on the one hand, you're saying these are real things that happen to real people, but docudrama is in
Not
some
real.
ways it's not real. That didn't really happen to those people,
Not in that way, no.
not in that way. And so, like, how do you understand that distinction?
Um, I think of it as like when I really think about it, I think about the like real lived experience as the part that kind of seeps out of the cracks of the structure. It's like
Mm,
we can't really, through watching, a 45-minute episode of Snapped, get a full picture of what was going on in the mind of the person who was killing someone else.
mm,
But we can have a snapshot of that, and the lived experience is what kind of like spills out of the frame and becomes the kind of horror part of it,
mm,
you know? And I think that there's a part of it that also, I don't know if this is answering your question, but like there's a part of it that I think why it's so popular, because it's actually a very popular show. It's been on for a long time, and it actually um, Universal actually revived Oxygen Crime Network because of this show, because it was so popular. I think that a lot of, particularly women, like have a strong identification with that domestic frustration.
mm,
And like it's a way of kind of channeling that in a safe way.
mm,
It's like
mm,
watching this show and being like, oh wow, like look at this person who like killed their partner because they were so unhappy,
mm. Is
you
there ever
know?
is there ever a part of you that goes like, I could do that. I
Not
could
really.
I could do
I
that.
couldn't even punch my brother a second time. Like, I don't
Right.
think I could do
Well,
that.
see, but this is what I think our viewers are going to find fascinating and what I want us to continue to dig into because Heather seems so nice, doesn't she? She's
It
so
seems so
she's
nice.
so kind and smiling and cheerful, and yet she's saying she likes watching serial killer docudramas. What is it about that, and how does it connect to the Heather we're seeing? Like,
Um, Well, I think the Heather that you see and the Heather that you know and the Heather that I am is, I try to think of myself as a very like kind, empathetic, warm, caring person. But I think that, everybody experiences rage, everybody experiences frustration, everybody experiences moments of, what can feel like, you know, unbearable oppression for moments.
mhm,
And these are people that literally snapped. These are people that like went through whatever it was that they were going through and like lost that control to like,
mhm,
not harm another person
mhm.
or to see harming another person as like the rational way out, which to me doesn't make sense, but okay. Um, and I think, like I can kind of understand that and I kind of, like when I think about the like rage or anger, I have a very hard time expressing that.
Mhm,
But I can watch something like Snapped and like kind of metabolize it in a way
mhm,
and be like, "Oh, I can see this expression of this like anger or hatred or frustration at society or frustration at men or frustration at, the capitalist system."
mhm,
And see someone who actually like lashed out against it
Mm,
in, what's in an inappropriate way, one would say. Obviously, murder is not good,
mm.
but it's like the most extreme expression of that.
Yeah, I'm starting to think about it in terms of like condensation. Like, is it that all of capitalism gets condensed into this sort of rich person, or is it that
Right.
all of sexism and domestic violence and
Gets
patriarchy
like
gets
sucked into this,
condensed?
like, yeah.
So, so I guess I want to go back also to this whole concept of serial killers because
Mhm.
if I understand right, Snapped isn't about serial killers. They only do one. Or are there Snapped episodes where people are killing multiple people?
There are snapped episodes where they follow someone who's like killed multiple people.
Okay.
There are those, are usually
Are those two-parters?
those are two-parters. They're very special episodes. Um, or they'll do like they did some like ones where it wasn't necessarily women that were doing the killing. Like they did the Menendez brothers. Like they did a
Oh.
docudrama on the Menendez brothers, and that was a big hit.
Mhm.
Um, so it's sort of like women and children that kill.
That was a big hit. So something here about when the vulnerable among us
Strike out.
take matters into our own hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mm,
mean it's disturbing, but it's interesting too.
mm,
And this like I said, the format of it is on that border of parody, so it's like you can kind of like watch it and like have this sort of like voyeuristic experience of this lashing out, but also
mm,
kind of laugh at it at the same time because it's
mm,
so formulaic.
mm.
Um, so it distances you a little bit.
Oh, okay.
It's
Because
not
of
even like your experience. It's like you can
yeah.
have that vicarious experience.
Do you ever catch yourself watching this and going, should I be enjoying this much?
Oh
Is
yeah. Oh
talk
yeah.
well, tell us about that.
I think like when I was really working on my dissertation, I would come home and I would like turn on Snapped.
Mm,
And, I was really stressed out. I was like working and I was writing and I would turn on Snapped and just like let it play.
mhm,
Just like, watch episode after episode when just to shut my brain off.
mm.
And I can't remember what the question was.
Um,
I got
I
I
can't
got caught up
either.
I got caught up in that moment of that time
Just
and was like, "Oh my God, what was it? What was it?"
well, we're describing dissociation, aren't we? Like
Basically,
that.
yeah, it was a way of dissociating. It was a
Yeah.
way of like
Yeah.
it was like one way to kind of like push myself away from the reality that I was experiencing into something like completely different.
Mm. And
Um,
well, so how many nights a week do you watch this nowadays?
I don't watch it near as much as I used to. I used to watch it, I used to find myself watching it a lot on the weekends. Um, Now I probably watch it like I'll like pull up episodes like I mean there's also a podcast, there's like it's a whole thing. Um, but I'll watch, like one or two episodes on a Saturday or like,
Mm,
if I get done on a Friday night and I don't have anything that I need to do, I'll watch a couple episodes and
mm.
like, you know, or Matt and I'll watch it and like laugh and then, be disturbed that that we're laughing at this.
Do you both laugh at the same parts?
Mostly because we laugh at the narration. Like
So tell us more about the narration because that's come
it's
up a
very
couple times.
affected.
Do you have a
It
clip of it by any chance that you could share on?
I don't have any clips up. Um, you could definitely pull clips. It's on Hulu
Mm,
if you wanted to.
mm.
Um,
Well, we'll just hear you do your rendition.
it's like somewhere between a like what's my rendition? I don't do accents very well, but it's like
Mm.
almost like a New England slash mixed with a little bit of a British kind of like
Huh.
condescension. It's hard to describe.
So sort of Boston Brahmin blue blood, sort of
Something like that. Yeah, very strange.
those working
Um,
class people, they kill each other.
they just kill each other. It's like, Yeah, it's very strange. But I mean, like I said, very popular.
Mm.
Like, it was people were really upset when especially Shannon Martin decided not to go on after season 23. I mean, she'd
What,
done 20 years of this show. She clearly would want to do something else with her voice acting career, but
so do you know why she stopped?
no, I don't know. I think she just had like done so much of it that she wanted to do something else, from what I can tell.
And do you actually see the brutality like when there is a murder?
Sometimes they'll like do really bad acting out of, the blurred, like person stabbing and those kinds of
Slow
things, which is
motion.
slow motion and like it is very kind of like, oh, horror movie reenactment kind of scenes that they'll do sometimes.
Mm.
But they do show actual like crime scene footage, like not footage, but crime scene images and like footage from trials and interviews with. I mean, it's funny because they like really hyper edit interviews with the usually the journalists and like whoever they can get to like talk on camera about the person.
Mm.
But they often don't have the person themselves. And I mean, that's, I'm sure, for legal reasons. Like, I'm sure
Right.
that person is not going to, like,
Or the other one's dead.
or the other one's dead. But, you don't have, they often can't, they don't interview the serial killer, but they'll show, like, the cop cam or the, like,
Mm.
footage from the like, confession tape or whatever.
Mm.
And that's, again, like that kind of voyeuristic pleasure of, like, seeing something that, you know, is kind of from that moment of like extreme violence, but you're like separated from it.
Mm. And so moving back from docudrama to
Hmm.
horror,
Yeah,
what like do you think that watching horror movies is a different sort of fun or pleasure than this? And if so, how?
I do think it's a different kind of pleasure. I think that when I was talking about Snapped and like the documentaries, I'm talking about the kind of like horror of like the real being contained,
Hmm.
and trying to understand that. I think that horror movies work in a different way. Like we talked about, like you having that experience of like identifying with sex and death, like linked together really intensely. And this notion of like, I mean, Scary Movie made it perfectly clear, it's like if you follow the rules, you don't die, And it's like if you can follow the rules well enough or you can do things either well enough or to like so much of an extreme the other direction, like badly enough, you
Hmm.
survive the horror movie. And there's
Hmm.
a sort of fascination with that I think is part of the pleasure of horror movies. I mean, another thing that people have talked about is like, you know, I talked a little bit about the idea of like metabolizing this sort of horrific. There's also the idea of like, the kind of relief that we have. Like the intensification of emotion allows for a certain amount of relief once it's
Hmm.
over,
Hmm.
and that's like heightens that pleasure of relief.
Hmm.
Um, I think Freud even talks about that.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm also thinking about how horror movies and genres like present us with archetypes and present us with, things that we recognize and sort of ways of understanding things that we might not be able to understand otherwise.
Hmm.
So if you think of like the figure of the witch, if you go to like Jung and the idea of the witch, like that
Hmm.
gives us a way of understanding something like scary,
Hmm.
but it's like contained in this figure.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
So scary. What is scary about the witch and what's contained, in your opinion?
What's scary about the witch is there's this idea of sort of like otherworldly power, and like uh ability to control the uncontrollable.
Mm.
And so like citing that in a figure, like that can be really frightening, but at the same time, if we cite it in a figure of the other, that can be containing.
Hmm. So I'm thinking about the movie The Witch. I don't know if you've
Mm,
seen it. Um,
you know. When
it
did it come out?
it came out in after 2020. I'm trying to remember when. So, just as a little backstory,
Huh?
every Halloween, because I have insomnia, every Halloween I watch a horror movie every night.
Oh, wonderful.
So and one of
Wonderful,
the
delightful.
so weird, so
I
weird.
don't know. Such a
Yeah,
freak.
so one of the ones that I watched last year and I watched again this year was called The Witch, and it is set in puritanical New England,
Ah.
and this group of this family that gets exiled from I think it's Plymouth Colony, and they go off
Mhm.
into the woods. And there are going to be spoilers here, folks. But
That's okay.
they encounter witches, and there's also this sort of family drama where the oldest daughter is being accused by her parents at a certain point of
Mm.
being a witch,
Oh,
and then there's like a baby that gets disappeared and probably eaten, and
probably
then the
eaten by the witches or
probably eaten by
whatever.
the witches, right? And then there's and this is not the first witch movie, by the way, I've seen where a baby gets eaten.
Oh
um
yeah.
there was one that I don't remember, but this the character actually had a sort of LSD or psychedelic trip, and while under that influence of that ate their daughter,
Ah,
and or son or something. And but I'm trying to think of like what in those is getting contained, because it doesn't seem
that's a
like
good
anything's
question.
contained.
Well, it's almost it's like it's getting expelled in a way.
Mm,
Um, I mean, when you were talking about it, I was thinking, well, of course the babies are getting eaten because like one of one of the things that I found when I was writing my dissertation on reproduction in the American cinema and like talking about different figures around the abortion debate.
mm,
And one of the things that we found in the horror genre is that you know, abortion providers and midwives were often cast as witches or monsters
mm,
and
mm,
represented
mm,
filmically as like witches and monsters.
mm.
And I was like, of course, like there's this link between like the horror of reproduction and the witch.
Mm.
Um, and sort of like violence of birth and violence of death kind of gets mixed together there with like babies getting eaten.
But okay, so and there's another really good horror movie, and I don't know if it's
Mhm.
called Hansel and Gretel or Gretel. I'll have to figure this out, but it has Alice Krieg in it. And Alice Krieg is good in anything creepy. She's
Yeah,
awesome. But when you say that, there's a part of me that recoils because I'm thinking of Hansel and Gretel. I'm like, but the kids get away. They put the witch in the stove. They don't get eaten in the sort of
well, in the Disneyfied version, yeah, they don't get
right.
eaten. But I
Well,
think there's probably a darker version where they do.
okay,
I mean, if you
but
think about the Brothers Grimm,
right,
these are
but
horrifying fairy tales.
well, they are horrifying. But I think what I find interesting about the Brothers Grimm is that in some ways the horror is before we even get to the witch. I mean, parents abandoning their
True.
children, right, leaving
Right.
them to starve in the woods.
Yeah,
But when they get to the witch, she doesn't kill them. They kill her.
that's true.
So, but in
But
these
they're protecting
movies,
themselves from being made into gingerbread.
gingerbread, that's true. And they are getting fattened up. I guess that's the thing that's interesting to me, isn't it? Like those fairy tales never struck me as really horrific
Mm.
because of course no one would eat their child. And yet we know for a fact that that child eating is something that happens all the time. In fact, when you were talking about, well, not like in today's day and age, like your next door neighbors, but like archetypally, metaphorically, we're talking about
Right.
like when you were talking about at the beginning of our segment tonight, I was thinking about this is all like Medea. Like this
Ah,
is classical Greek, you know,
yeah.
Medea and devouring and feeding
Devouring
of
the
kids and
children. Yeah.
and just flying off on a chariot of dragons.
Right.
Um, since we're talking about horror movies, which is a lot of fun,
Mm.
have you seen Heredity? or
Yes, I have. I was literally thinking about that when you were talking. I was like, gosh, I wonder what you think about Heredity.
is it
I
Heredity or Hereditary?
think it's Heredity.
Is it so? Well, I love Heredity. You know what? I'm going to search it so that we don't say the
So we
wrong
don't
thing
say it
for
wrong.
the wrong thing. I mean, first off, just like I said, anything with Alice Krieg is amazing. Anything
Yes,
with Toni Collette is also
it's
good.
also good. Yes.
Uh, yeah, it's Hereditary.
Oh, it
So
is.
so
Oh,
yeah.
whoops.
So Hereditary, which with the amazing Toni Collette.
Yes.
I found that movie scary, but also funny. Like,
I mean, there is something like, there are so many different facets to that movie. Like, I wouldn't even know. I'm not sure where even to start except for the like head getting chopped off by the car. Um, because that one really, like, I did not expect that. I have to
allergies kill,
admit.
man. Allergies kill.
It's like, don't stick your head out a window.
No,
It's a bad idea when you're in a moving car.
no, but I mean that is actually in some ways a perfect send up or reductio ad absurdum of like
Hmm.
the peanut allergy trope and
Right.
here's this I warned you she should she can't have
Right.
these things and she's like so she doesn't just get her head popped off because she's sticks it out the window. She sticks it out the window because she's choking because of her
Right. Because of
allergy.
her allergy, and then she
Right.
gets her head chopped off.
Yep.
Yeah, no, like it's really quite disturbing.
Yeah.
And, it's like, and then, the whole ritualistic aspect of the whole film is like intensely disturbing.
Well, yes, and the actress who is from The Handmaid's Tale, right? Who
Right.
plays Aunt Lydia, she's amazing in it. There's
Yeah.
this one really
Oh.
interesting sort of surreal moment towards the end where the headless body, I think it's the headless body of the grandmother who dies
Hmm.
before the beginning, is sort of seen, or maybe it's the headless body of the mother, but there's this headless body that kind of glides out and up into the treehouse,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it turns out the treehouse is now this assemblage of cult figures
Yeah.
who've got the little head, and there's this
So
bizarre
weird.
tableau, right?
Yeah. 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 And it's like this weird, I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, it's almost like this weird moment of like transferring the like ritual down to generationally.
Yes, and
And it's so disturbing.
and the whole goal is like that the son, who by the way is the person that like was driving the car
Right,
when
who's
his
driving the
sister's head come
car.
out, loses his mind to the point that the evil demon can come in and
Right.
he just sort of starts twitching, and then suddenly
Then he
there
becomes, yeah,
becomes this evil
this
demon.
evil demon.
And not coincidentally, this horror movie is made by the same director who did Midsummer. And I don't know if
Ah.
you've seen that movie, but if you
No, I've
have,
heard a little bit about it, but I'm super curious.
Midsummer is so gory and
Yeah.
grotesque that I saw it once. And every year I think, I should watch Midsummer again. And I get close to it and I go, nah,
No.
yeah, it's so violent
Hmm.
and so gory, and it I just can't tolerate it in the same way that I could tolerate Hereditary.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think everybody has their like horror threshold,
What's
you
yours?
know.
What's a horror
I'm
movie
just
that
thinking
you?
about that. What's a horror movie that I just couldn't do?
I mean, imagine you have a pretty high threshold.
I have a pretty high threshold as I think about it. I mean, honestly, like the only horror movie I've ever walked out of it wasn't because it was so scary. It was because it was actually the camera work was making me nauseous.
Huh.
Was Cloverfield,
Oh, okay.
the
Yeah.
monster movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like I tried really hard to watch it because I was interested in it, but the jerky camera movement was just like too much for me at a certain point, and I like had to leave.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed. I finally watched it like in segments because I couldn't actually watch it all at one time.
Right. It's
But it wasn't a gore thing. It was a
it
like
was
motion
Right.
sickness.
The sort of cinema verite kind of. Would that be what you call cinema verite, or is that a different style?
Yeah, yeah, I was doing a parody of Cinema Verite and doing it. I mean, it was funny because it's one of those films that I was like, God, my students shot better stuff than this. Like,
Mm,
it's like you don't need a steady cam to like at least hold your hand still.
right. And there's really not a lot of monster in it. There's a lot of
No, there's very
implied
little. There's a
monster,
lot of
but
like implied, but and I think I mean, I think that was kind of the fascination is like, could they get away with that in this era of like,
mhm,
high, CGI entertainment where like everything can be made explicit? Like,
mhm,
could you get
mhm,
away with a monster that was like hidden? And
mhm.
they kind of did, you know.
What
They
have
did an
you
okay
seen
job.
recently that you've liked in terms of horror?
Hmm. It's been a little while since I've gone to the movies to watch a horror film. Um, I I kind of like the trope of the like investigators going into like paranormal stuff. And like
Oh,
I kind of find that kind of interesting if it's done well.
mm.
Um,
Oh, so let's talk about the Blair Witch Project.
yeah. So we should talk about the Blair Witch Project. I personally really love the Blair Witch Project. And I
Tell us
feel like
why.
um well I think it's because they did a good job with the like cinema verite part of it, but they also did an extraordinarily, we talk about containers. They did an extraordinary job like setting the film up,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially in the initial weeks of the release of the film itself when it was first released to theaters.
Mm,
Like they kept those actors under wraps and they did not put out any information about them. They just put out the fake news articles.
mm,
And so people who went into the theater the first couple of days that it was out actually thought they were watching this real horror movie,
mhm,
and didn't realize until later when everything started to be revealed 2 or 3 days later that like, oh no, this was all acted.
mm,
It was kind of like tricking the audience initially.
mm,
Um, and I remember we were having like big discussions about that, when it came out because some people were really mad, some people were like thought that was brilliant. Other
mm,
people were like, did it even matter? I think it was brilliant, and I think that it did matter
mhm, mhm,
because people had this really intense, you know, almost somatic experience of watching this film and thinking it was real
mhm,
and, having that intense identification with the screen,
mhm,
which you especially get with cinema verite because you really feel like you have that like, eye on the world kind of being there moment.
mhm.
So you thought you were there with these teens in the woods and it was like really intense.
Well, and watching them come unraveled on,
Right.
right? And just at the end, there's something chilling still about
That image in the basement.
in the basement with the person in the corner. And
I get chills just thinking about it.
yeah, it's like, why? What is that? Like, what is that that just got us just chilled like that?
I think it's again, I think it's that it's this like this unknown. It's this unknowable, you know.
Mm,
Again, that screen. It's like we don't know what's happening and we just know that something bad has happened.
mm,
And there's so much
mm,
potential for anger and violence and,
mm, mm.
explosion to happen, but it's in this image of this person just standing there against a wall.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's something in here about Freud and the uncanny, where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
things are familiar, but we're also definitely far, far away from where we should be in
Yeah.
safety.
Yeah,
Right,
we're far away from safety.
right.
Absolutely.
Other favorites?
Oh, what are some other favorites? There's so many of them.
What? Okay, let me let me kind of refine the question. What what horror movie do you think every psychotherapist should watch?
Ooh, that's that's a really tough question. And the one that I'm thinking of Well, there's two. One is an Italian horror movie that they Suspiria.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, the original one, the Italian horror movie, is definitely worth watching.
Hmm.
I don't know. Everybody makes something different out of it, so I always think it's like an interesting thing for psychotherapists to watch because you'll
Hmm.
like interpret it differently.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think, I mean, and this, goes back to my thing on fascination with reproduction, but like Rosemary's
I
Baby,
was just gonna say we should have a
just gotta watch
watch
Rosemary's
party with Katie
Baby.
Gentili and watch
Yes,
Rosemary's Baby.
she would love that. She would
Well,
love that.
so Katie, I know you're coming on this shortly, but at some point, if you're listening, we want to have a watch
We want to have
party
a
and
watch
watch
party for
Rosemary's
Rosemary's
Baby.
Baby.
What
Ooh.
about that? Okay, so aside from Katie Gentili, who else should watch Rosemary's Baby and why? What's so fun about that one?
Oh, I think everybody should watch it. I think it's fascinating because it's so I want to say gaslighty, but like I don't know exactly what the term is. It's like there's the sort of like kindly old women are the witches and um it's like this woman is just like trying to get through this pregnancy and like all these things are happening around her and to her
Mm-hmm.
and and then of course then there's the big reveal at the end, right?
Mm.
And there's something about this sort of like possession and the demonic that I think is really powerful in Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I still find very disturbing or frustrating about that movie, I
Mhm.
think it was Charles Grodin that
Mhm.
plays the other OBGYN,
Yeah, I think
uh
so.
that she flees to try to
Right.
get good health care,
Right.
and turns
Desperate time for
out
healthcare.
he's part of the old
He's
boy
part of the whole
network,
thing.
and just sort of like refers her back
Yeah,
to her evil satanic doctor.
I know.
And then there's the whole subplot of what I interpret as
Mhm.
the what's good about the baby or what's human about the baby being killed off by whatever that little
Yeah,
herb is,
whatever the herb is.
and the
Yes.
shakes and everything. It's like there seems to be something like we're watching an abortion happen,
Right.
at the same
Like you're
time.
watching a medical abortion, but at the same time, it's like a possession,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and,
Oh,
and yeah, and at the end, the maternal instinct,
right.
back away, Mary Louise. This is she's gonna mother this baby.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that is a great one. I'm just, what are some others that, before we stop, we should recommend? And also, are
Mhm.
there any groaners? Are there any horror movies that you've watched that you're like, oh God, that was so bad?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, again, this is part of like my dissertation research, but like there was a whole section of films that I watched for my dissertation on reproduction
Hmm.
that talked about, the horror of the like abortion provider.
Hmm.
And there was one particular one that the plot of the movie was the evil abortion provider. It was called The Amazing Transplant. And the plot of the movie was that there was it's so awful. Um, this guy needed a penis transplant, and the only person that would provide it was an abortion provider because it was this shady, like monstrous doctor that would provide this. And they did the transplant, but it was the penis of a rapist, and so he was possessed by this rapist's penis, and like went around killing women throughout the film.
Oh, jeez.
And it was just horrific. It was just like production values were terrible.
Oof.
And it was just like it was just grotesque. I
Mm.
was just like, I wish that someone had not have even come up with that plot.
Well, there is a counterpart. There's at least
Hmm.
one vagina dentata movie that came out in the past few years
Oh
that
yeah.
talk about a serial killer,
Hmm.
right? And then there's the infamous Chatterbox. I don't know if you remember that movie.
No.
That has a singing vagina in it.
Oh, shoot. I have to
So
watch it now.
yeah. And while we're throwing these out, we should also, recommend Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes, of course.
And people
Attack of the
should.
Killer Tomatoes is really, really good and
There's
really, really bad.
really, really good. Really. So I also saw one last night that I would throw out to people, which is called the Vordelok, and it
Hmm.
is sort of a vampire. I can't believe we haven't
Ooh.
talked about
We haven't
vampires
talked
yet.
about vampires. Oh
we
my
we'll
God. We
talk
did a
about
whole
that a
thing
little
on
bit.
horrors and
Yeah,
not talk about vampires.
no, we'll talk about vampires. Well, but this is sort of a vampire-esque thing. But what's cool
Hmm.
about it is the evil vampire creature in it
Hmm.
is is a puppet.
Oh.
And every other character is human. It's not a live action or live animation. It's set in this sort of kind of grainy, almost NYU School of Film student sort of project.
Student
So yeah,
production
student
type of
production.
stuff.
And then there's this fairly finessed puppet which plays the character of the
Oh,
Vodelark,
interesting.
which is kind of a vampiric creature.
Ooh.
So if people are interested in that one, you might get a kick out of it. But favorite vampire movie?
There are so many. I, you know, I think just for the aesthetics alone, I'd have to go with Bram Stoker's.
Okay.
I liked that a great deal because I
Mm-hmm.
thought that the visuals were really stunning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People can complain about it all they want, but I think they did a good job with what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of other vampire movies that I really liked.
Mm. What did you think of Salem's Lot?
Salem's Lot, it's interesting. Like the creepiness factor is really intense in Salem's Lot,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that I come away from Salem's Lot with is that like the chill
Yeah.
feeling that we were just describing
Mm-hmm.
is much more than say like watching something like, Bram Stoker's, which is like, visuals all the time.
Yep.
Salem's Lot is much more subtle but like very creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Much more subtle. Well,
Well,
as these things go.
so we also haven't talked about clowns at all, and haven't
Oh
talked.
God.
Are you an It fan? Are you an It girl?
Am I an it girl? Well, I laugh a little bit because for at one point in time I was in my private practice, I had three different people that were training as clowns. So I am a clown therapist, I like to say.
What is a
Um,
Chinese clown?
we're training as clowns.
Training as clowns. I was like, okay.
Yes,
I thought you
they were
said
working, not a Chinese clown. No, they were training as clowns.
okay.
Um, and so like there was always this kind of joke about, I specialize in the circus arts.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I liked it. I thought I didn't like the original, I liked the remake.
Mm,
And I'm not sure why the remake for me was more appealing.
hmm.
Um it creeped me out more, even though I feel like the older one should have creeped me out more.
Mm,
There's a part of me that's like I feel like there's something more sort of like real about the original that should
hmm.
have made it more creepy to me, but like I guess maybe just because I've seen it more recently, the like remake kind of got to me.
Mm. When you're talking about the remake,
Mhm.
which one are you talking about?
Oh, which one? Um, I think it's the most recent one. It's
Because there's now a series based on that.
oh no, I'm talking about the 2017,
Oh, okay.
which
Okay.
to me still feels recent,
Yep.
sadly.
I haven't watched it this year, but I did watch The Shining again last year, and that
Ooh,
one.
that's another one that psychoanalysts should watch.
Okay, there we go. So, psychoanalyst, if you haven't watched The
Haven't seen The
Shining,
Shining, you need to watch The Shining. It's on the list.
how young do you think it is okay for kids to watch horror movies? As a human, I'm asking you as a human, not as a
As a human
therapist.
being, not as a
Yeah,
therapist.
yeah.
I would really wait until like at least like 13, 14, 15. It's like at that point, I feel like some viewing is like fine.
Mm,
Like I know for like slashers and like
mm,
it and like the creepier stuff, I would definitely hold off a little bit. I mean, it's
hmm.
like I was a big fan when I was a kid of like monster movies, and I don't think that that's necessarily such a bad genre for kids.
Hmm.
Um, as long as they're not too scary.
Yeah, like Godzilla movies don't
Right.
seem like they're horror movies,
They're
although
not
they
really
are.
horror movies. They're
Well,
monster movies, but they're not,
right.
and I grew up on watching, like on television, the old, 30s,
Mm,
40s, and 50s monster
yeah.
movies. And like they, were perfectly, quote unquote, suitable for children.
Do you remember Creature Double Feature? Did you
Creature
get?
double feature all the way.
I love Creature Double Feature. So for those of you who are not local or familiar with it, in the Boston, New England area, we had Creature Double Feature, which was broadcast out of Boston, which was two horror movies every Saturday. They
Yep.
were lovely, campy. They didn't, a lot of them didn't get really kind of gory. They
They
were
weren't too bad. They were good for
they
kids.
were good for kids. Yeah.
Totally
Um,
loved Creature Double Feature.
have we missed anything about horror that you want us to know about why horror and why murder is so much fun for you?
Murder is so much fun for me. Quotes that one can take away. Um, oh, Heather, murder is so much fun for her. Um, I think for me, it's like the ability to think about the like most extreme and think about the most awful
Mm,
and still be able to kind of like remain safe in my sort of humanity. And
mm,
the horror genre allows that.
mhm,
It allows you to kind of like I said, voyeuristically look at crime scenes or listen to the interview with the person that crossed over and killed someone or,
mm,
think about the witch and what that means.
mhm,
Um, but it allows us to kind of remain in our sort of safe, protected space as the viewer
mm,
and feel comforted in our own humanity. And I think there is something to, you know, they often talk about when we talk about coping with real world threats, one of the theories around the horror genre is it allows us to be inoculated with the horror of the world in a metabolizing form
mm,
so that we can then face the horror of the real world that's uncontained. And
mm,
I think we see a lot of horror in the real world today.
mhm,
And I think, being able to look at it in a horror film or laugh at it in a like parody docudrama
mm,
allows us to look at what's really going on and like try to face it
mm.
and still remain, human.
So I'm realizing as we're sort of, winding up that we have been talking for the most part, Suspiria accepted,
Mhm.
um,
About American
about
film
American
and
film.
American
Like,
television, right?
as a J horror fan,
Mhm.
we haven't talked about any of the amazing
Oh no.
classic
There's
Japanese horror films.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And like, I would actually turn you to a friend of mine to like talk about classical Japanese horror.
Ooh,
The Gusta
yep.
Palmer's out there somewhere.
No, definitely, definitely send along their info because
I will.
I'm a huge J horror fan. Um, So before we finish up, Heather has come on for fun and for free, like all of our guests. But I've asked her to give us a nonprofit that she wants to have us considered donating to, and I'm going to share the screen here, and folks can see. And Heather, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the Trevor Project means to you and why you suggest this.
I mean, the Trevor Project is a really amazing project that's been going on for a long time that really works with transgender teens and, teens that are like at risk for higher rates of suicide, higher rates of homelessness, higher rates of violence. against them and really provides counselors and provides resources. And it's just an amazing foundation. And so, being able to, support this organization, I think is really a powerful way to like be a part of the community and like help support the community. And so I always use it as like my go-to um, group that I donate to.
Mm. So, and it's got a lovely pumpkin orange.
Yes, it's got a nice Halloween. And right now, if you donate it, it doubles your donation,
No,
just so you know.
that is really cool. So your
Yeah,
donation will get doubled.
it will get doubled right now.
Pretty awesome. And so, folks, just so you know, some of what the Trevor Project does, it does a range of crisis services, advocacy, research, peer support, public education, stuff that is even more needed now with the
So much more needed now. Yeah,
increase
absolutely.
in sort of in sort of pressure by our current government to really kind of reduce care and restrict access to care for LGBTQIA plus youth.
Yeah.
Um, Heather, thank you so much for joining us and for like you were talking about having done a full day of patients before you got here. So
Yeah, I hope this works out. I hope this is a good enough material for you.
oh,
So,
it was perfect. It was great. So I'm glad you shared your love of horror with us. And if you have any a list of top 10 horror movies, I will include it at the end of the thing.
yeah,
But
I'll send it along.
yeah, but for now, I'm gonna just say good night and thank you once again.
Thank you. Have a great night
Heather McGibbon, everybody.
and happy Halloween.